So we have Steve Pemberton, stevepemberton.io. And if we could, Steve, just for a second, talk about that domain, the .io, because that tells me already that you're forward thinking, you're tuned in and plugged in and doing what's right. So as an author, tell us about what you're doing and where and what people will find when they go to stevepemberton.io.
So the .io actually is the new version of the .com, as you know. So what you'll find on the site are a few things. One are two books that I have written. The most recently published was The Lighthouse Effect, linked to a masterclass that I did with one of the subjects of the Lighthouse Effect, and also my first book, which was called A Chance in the World. And so it's really a way for me to kind of interact with the community beyond social media and followers that emerged really as a result of the first book. So that's my hobby, I guess you might say. My day-to-day job is I'm the CHRO of a fantastic company called Work Human, and we power the recognition platforms of companies and organizations that are looking to bring gratitude and recognition to their cultures and subsequently change those cultures.
You talk about the Lighthouse Effect. Do you want to go into that and how you explain and how you came to that? It's brilliant. Using being the lighthouse and then illuminating people with positivity, like Mike and I and Dave talk about, and goodness, and then you go into gratitude. So what gave you the inspiration to write that book?
Yeah, Mike, I mean, it is a story that fascinates me, actually, because I didn't intend it. So no presumptions of genius here. It actually began with my first book, A Chance in the World, and even that was a happy accident. My then 6-year-old son, one morning when we were reading, asked me if, when I was a little boy, did I have a daddy? And I said no. And he said, well, what about a mommy then? And again, I said no. I grew up in foster care. I didn't know who my mother and father were, and I bounced around a lot of turbulent foster homes, very difficult places. And I somehow managed to navigate all of that, was taken in by a high school teacher when I was 16, just 3 days after Christmas, found my way to college, graduated, and went down the career path. And so I really wasn't expecting that question. I thought that question would come when I was sending him off to college, and he would, I just couldn't process that at that age, a child would be thinking about that. And I also learned pretty quickly that when you answer a child's question and they don't understand the answer, that is not the end of the conversation. So he and his younger brother and their younger sister would bombard me with questions. And I wanted writing a book about it, in essence. And that's all I really thought it was, is family history. Let me get it down for future generations. I think we should all do that, get down our family stories and histories for future generations. Well, within the first week that it's written, I begin hearing from people all over the world. And what started the week after that book was published in 2012 continues to this very day, where every day I will hear from somebody who's read the book, watched the movie, seen an interview I've done, and they'll write to me. Just yesterday, just amazing. This grandmother wrote to me to say that I had inspired her to become a foster parent. Yvonne is her name. And you're just not expecting a story like that, But every day, imagine that happens to you, right? Which led to the Lighthouse Effect. Because I think when any of us share our stories, and we all have a story, by the way. We all have a story. And none of us look like that story. But the world kind of makes us believe that makes us think that we know somebody's story just by looking at them. And you don't. And what you learn pretty quickly when you share your story is that you have chapters of somebody else's life that has nothing to do with your race, your gender, your zip code, who you voted for, how much money you have, what your title is. Like, there's this deeper human narrative that exists amongst all of us. And I learned that from the first book. And so what I decided to do with the Lighthouse Effect was I wanted to write the stories of these 10 people I met along my life journey. It's a young boy, younger man, and how our lives intersected, what I learned from them specifically. And what I learned from them was very much the lessons of the Lighthouse, to be uncompromising in their belief, to turn doubts into destinations, to understand that the first picture is not the full story, to give from where you are with whatever you have, to illuminate outward and not inward. Those are all the things that the Lighthouse does.